Going on as usual. Today is Friday, May 2nd, 2025. And net zero leads to blackouts as Spain demonstrates. Nobody's surprised that, yes, it was the reliance on solar power, it looks like. Well, that's what the Spanish media is reporting. And people who were watching this whole thing happen aren't surprised. So we're going to follow them into their net zero nightmare. Hopefully we don't lose power during the wintertime. AFD has been classified as firmly right-wing extremist by the government, setting the stage for the government to take legal action and maybe make it so that they can't run in elections because the EU doesn't like right-wing extremists. So if Germany decides, yes, these people are right-wing extremists, they can't run. I think that if Canada had a conservative party that was saying the things that the AFD is saying, or going forward with a Trump-like plan to get rid of, do mass deportations, things like that, suddenly Canada would realize that's illegal. You can't say things like that. This is 2025, and we've got a communist dictatorship to run. So Hulk Hogan memes are now part of our political discord. I'll show you that. It's a Doug Ford meme where he's ripping off his conservative shirt to become a liberal because he's a liberal inside, really. Trans men are banned from women's soccer in the UK. Yay! And it's interesting because we're being left behind. The United States comes out really strongly with their protecting women and women's spaces and women's sports, saying this is ridiculous. We're using every tool, every legal and economic tool we can find to reinforce the reality that there are men and there are women. They are different and they should not compete against each other in women's sports. And so we've also got a huge amount of stuff going on, DEI funding to the Canadian Armed Forces, but we've got a whole bunch of election stuff. We've got Jason Kenney and hot water. Jason Kenney, I am absolutely convinced, is trying to make himself relevant for when Pierre Poilievre abandons the idea of continuing to run the Conservative Party of Canada. He's going to swoop in and pick at the bones and make them the Liberal Party of Canada again, right? Because the Liberal Party of Canada has gone off the deep end. I don't know if Carney's going to keep them off the deep end. It looks probably like he is, but who knows? But Kenney wants to occupy the middle, right, with the Conservative Party branding, but he'll occupy the center. And I don't know. That's what he's doing. So lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we've got to start with the election stuff. And gov.exe says, stop calling Canada a democracy. It's not. It's in a democracy. Corruption and corrupt politicians would be held accountable for their crimes. That doesn't happen in Canada. Call it a kleptocracy, kakistocracy. I don't know what that is. Plutocracy. And Freeland indeed wrote about the rise of the plutocrats, right? But don't try to tell me that Canada is a democracy. I am starting to feeling that very, very strong. The elections are being still counted, right? We're days out and they're still counting, and a seat is flipped from the Liberals back to the Bloc, so the Liberals are still at 168 seats. But if the NDP join them, then they've got a majority, and I heard Mark Carney is trying to get 4 NDP. The early movers get the most reward, right? So if you move early, you get all the spoils. And so he's saying, hey, NDP, you guys should come on over and get in the pool while it's warm. Everybody who moves first gets the best stuff, right? And so I don't know, will the NDP be convinced that we've got almost a month to wait? It's not until the end of the month that the House of Commons comes back. Julian Assange has been paying attention to this. May 1st, he says, Elections Canada started counting the mail-in ballots days before everyone else has voted. They knew days in advance of polling day which candidates were leading in their respective ridings and what percentage of votes they would need to have a surge in mail-in ballots and come from behind to clinch the lead. We need a forensic audit. I don't know where he's getting this information from. I am interested to know, from what I understand, Elections Canada was counting the ballots 6 hours before, but previously they said it was going to be 2 hours before, and then they changed it to 6 hours before. It wouldn't shock me to find out that they were counting days before, but I don't have any proof that Julian Assange is correct in what he's saying. But if what he's saying is correct, that's concerning, right? It's very, very concerning. I don't think that it matters whether it was 6 hours before or days before. All you need is the total that you need to beat, and then you can manufacture those ballots, right? Or just go on CTV News and say, oh yeah, it's a Liberal election. They won the election again. Shocker. Here's CTV News calling Pierre Poilievre a dick. And this is a weird way to get around it, but here's what he was saying. Is this guy door knocking? I thought he's I thought he's on air talent. Is he a politician? Here is this guy, and he's saying Pierre Poilievre is being called a dick at the doors. And I don't think I believe him, but here we go.
You have MPs that have told me that it's really difficult going door to door because a lot of people were saying, we like some of the policies you're doing, but we think your leader's a dick. And we, really. And we think he is, I'm sorry, but
it's not that funny.
Telling me.
All right. I'm going to have some ombudsman's paperwork.
This is very manufactured. This guy, the guy behind me right now, this guy is laughing like a hyena. This sounds very, very manufactured. And I don't buy. I have a phone call coming in. I'm trying to say no. I don't buy the laughter. It seems like they're trying to make this as funny and hilarious as they possibly can. And it's ridiculous. It's not that funny, right? Calling names and attributing it to other people at the doors. It's a dirty trick that I don't think it should fly. CBC is getting into the whole, editorializing and telling you who you should support and how you should support them and so on and so forth. Contrarian says, remember when Trudeau got nonstop positive Canadian media coverage right up to his resignation? Can you tell it's already started for Mark Carney? Oh yeah. Yep. I can see the hyena laughing hilariously for Mark Carney. It's as if something has changed when he kept all the same incompetent people. Our media is corrupt. And here's the CBC. He's got a cartoon here. And so he says, okay, so $150 million a year, and we attack conservatives and hide all your failures. Yeah, basically keep me in power for eternity, says Mark Carney, right? The cartoon. Yeah. Yep. Here's Michelle Ferrier yesterday, and I read the article, and I thought there's something hinky here, but we'll let this play out a little bit. So Michelle Ferrier put up a video. CTV watched the video, wrote an editorial without reaching out to her. And what she was saying was the conservatives should find a sweet spot, like not being seen as extreme. And I don't know I don't know the context. Apparently the video is, I haven't watched the video, so apologies. But here she is talking about how this whole thing went down and how the media is dishonest. And yeah, I mean, I think we know the media is dishonest. So I apologize for getting it wrong yesterday. I was saying Michelle Ferrier is wrong. Really what happened was the media misrepresented her words. And so apologies to Ms. Ferrier. And the media is messed up, man. Here she is.
Just Michelle here. It's like, so that video that I did yesterday, talking about my loss, and I did it online about how we need to come together and we need to find a sweet spot and, losing the election and learning from the election and what we need to do moving forward, because clearly there's half and half. If you didn't see the video, it's on my Instagram. CTV does an article on my video, doesn't interview me, just does an article and positions it like I'm throwing Pierre under the bus. Like, this is why people have divisiveness. Like the very thing that I said in the video that we need to stop doing, the media is feeding this. Sorry, but it's brutal. They go, she never once mentioned Pierre. Yes, I did mention Pierre, number one. And number two, they spun it like I was, like they want people to have infights. They want that. I fully support Pierre Poilievre. I think he is one of the most exceptional leaders of our time. What he was able to do in a short period of time against factors that he could not control, this guy did an incredible job. His family did an incredible job. His team did an incredible job. Is there lessons to be learned? Obviously. Hello, like anything, after any race, anything you have to learn. But CTV, like, this is why we have to fight back. This is why you have to speak up. Like, the media is such an antagonist to all of this, and it's so frustrating.
Okay, there you go. And the media has paid off, right? Just like they were under Trudeau, the media has paid off. It's happening in different ways. These things change people's opinions. Those opinions are being changed on purpose. Google estimates that they change 5 to 10% based on their search result pruning. And media, I mean, how much more does the electorate change their opinion based on incorrect media, right? So it's very, very concerning. And how do you get a handle on it? Well, obviously you increase the CBC's budget, obviously. Kyle Kemper says, I'm increasingly convinced that Pierre Poilievre was the designated loser. Here's why and where I predict things go. Okay, when he says designated loser, or what I think by designated loser is, I think they're trying to knock him off of his game. And I don't know that he's necessarily in the game with these people who are plotting to take down Canada, which is why his team didn't win. The globalist CPC maybe didn't have as much control over their leader. Maybe he wanted to be an independent leader. And so he took the party and did what he did. But to knock him off or whatever, yes, the collapse of the NDP and the Greens had something to do with it. But also the redrawing of the district had something to do with it. And Poilievre having to now focus on re-winning his seat takes his eye off the other objective of dealing with this loss and so on and so forth. He's got other things to deal with. It distracts the leader. And as I said the other day, it reverses the situation. Previously, before, we had virtually the same configuration of government, only Mark Carney was in the prime minister position, unelected. And now the leader of the opposition, we're in exactly the same position with regards to minority government propped up by the NDP or propped up by a third party, and now the prime minister is legitimate because he's been elected, and the leader of the opposition is unelected, right? So it's a complete flip, and Poilievre is now on the other side of it. And so how do you realistically deal with that and then lead your party to a win if what you just did wasn't enough? You know what I'm saying? And so that's demoralizing for leaders. So I don't know if Poilievre was in on it. I suspect probably not. So I think that he is the victim and has probably been this has been a surprising outcome for him, I would imagine. He didn't plan for this in the same way that I think Trump planned for the loss in 2020. I think Trump knew he was going to lose. He went away for 4 years and he came back knowing he was going to come back and win. And so I don't know that he knew he was going to win, but he planned to win. So is there a difference? I don't know. But here's Kyle Kemper's take on this. He says, here's why I think Poilievre is the designated loser. Poilievre failed because tightly controlled campaign messaging, the sloganeering that people said, conceded quickly and has since disappeared. Rustad conceded quickly as well. Never mentioned or opposed his riding expansion, ran against a nobody, never once mentioned the 98 candidates or 91 candidates on the ballot. Didn't expose Carney as a central banker, Bilderberg, WEF, UN envoy, 3 passport carrying globalist Decepticon. Yeah, there was a lot of ammo there. Didn't use any of it, right? There was a lot of other stuff. One criticism of Poilievre was that he never figured out how to run against Carney. He was only running against Trudeau. 5, Poilievre didn't activate the Bitcoiners in Canada, 5 million Bitcoiners. 6, rejected open discussion with some of the world's largest platforms. I showed you that yesterday. 7, didn't converse when Poilievre refused to have a meeting with Don Jr. 7, didn't converse or deal make with Max Bernier. Honestly, the Liberals use the NDP as an asset. If the Liberals can't win it, then maybe the NDP can. The Conservatives could make a deal with Bernier and make a deal, just not attack him, focus on the other ones, right? A lot of the campaigning, a lot of it was attacking. Well, there were back and forths with Bernier, et cetera, et cetera. Although I don't have any examples off the top of my head, but it seems that the Conservatives get distracted by something that should be an asset rather than focusing on what I think is an obvious target of the Conservative Party. Anyway, back to this. Didn't offer Canadians, attacked Trump like a CBC pundit, played into the narrative. Yeah, the Trump hate was interesting. I didn't like it because it was exactly the same thing that Carney was offering, and I wanted a better solution rather than Trump is to blame for this. And I just don't think that that's true. We're to blame for this because we put ourselves in a bad situation. Like as a country, we did. 9, didn't offer Canadians a vision and hope for an abundant and prosperous Canada. Yeah, the whole we're going to build houses. I don't want to build houses for foreigners around train stations. I just don't. Like that's not a solution to me. That's when we could solve the problem by reducing immigration. And if we can't do that because it's going to crash our economy, then be straight up about it with us. And he's not, and that's frustrating too. In retrospect, says Kyle Kemper, the writing was on the wall. Canada is not a democracy. It's not we the people. It's we the party. Alberta separation seems to be where energy is flowing and at a glance, it seems like this path could take shape. I'm going to say one more time, and I wish Alberta well. I'm not saying that Alberta can't separate, and it bothers me or anything like that personally. No, I'm talking about if they could separate, I wish them well, and I think that if they do, it will trigger a cascading effect that will see Canada join the United States. However, I don't think the entity that has control of Canada right now will allow Alberta to separate. The best way to deal with separatists in this situation is allow them to get a referendum, and then when the referendum comes together, you do exactly what you did with the election, right? Oh, close but no cigar, man. 49-51. Better luck next time, right? Sorry about your luck. Or 50, 59, whatever it is. If you need 60%, just a hair, just underneath. Not quite there. So I don't know. I think that we'll see. That allows people to expend that energy, and then when they fail, they think they did something wrong, right? And then they blame themselves, and then they don't try it again. So I think it's a strategy, and we're being played. So if you want to do this, figure out, think about it in a way to get it done. They can get it done without all the globalist tap dancing. If you can get it done in 2 moves, get it done in 2 moves. If you can get it done in 1 move, get it done in 1 move. But if you're going to do a referendum, and then you got to wear a hat, and you got to have a ceremony, you got to go down and talk to Donald Trump, you got to have a court appearance, you got to have a appeal, you got to do a whole bunch of you've got to go get a fern, right? Like you have to go do a whole bunch of other things that are not going to have anything to do with anything, and all of a sudden, boom. The whole thing is done. Sorry, you can't do that. You just won't be allowed to go. That's, I think, fundamentally what's going to happen. Maybe I'm wrong. Back to this. When it separates, Canada is fractured, and the Liberals will increase their control as a result of all Alberta MPs removed from the House. Trump may offer conservative, patriotic Canadians a path to expedited citizenship, only accelerating the collapse of Canada. USA gives Alberta a protectorate status like Puerto Rico, and Alberta is able to draw up tax and governance structures that engender prosperity. Canada continues to fail, and Canadians witness the economic strength of Alberta, as well as how seamless the integration with the United States was, while the failing Carney and his friends implement technocracy surveillance. See, but I'm not convinced that the United States is going to avoid this technocracy surveillance, because they're going to say Trump's building an Iron Dome military, the missile defense system. I'm not convinced that he's going to have a situation where there's not some boogeyman on American streets and you're going to need some kind of digital ID to move properly to keep us safe. I'm not convinced. If the globalists can get the technocracy, central bank digital currency, social credit system in Canada, they're going to try and get it in the United States. Like if we accept it, the United States would accept it. And after Carney's win and what I've heard from people, I'm not convinced anybody would have the wherewithal to understand what's happened once that system's in place. Honestly, it's unbelievable. Calls for North American Union grow and independence from monarchy. A deal is struck and the NAU takes shape, and again as a economic bloc, as the Club of Rome wants. The top is all off. Uncle Mark and his friends are filthy rich after decades of extracting wealth from Canada. This is a theory about things have unfolded, and where does it go from here? So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. I don't know. Ryan Garrettson says election interference is now celebrated in Canada. CTV News says longest ballot group declares victory in Poilievre's former riding amid criticism. So yesterday I was talking about sometimes I don't get the tabs and they don't come up when I save them for whatever reasons. But this is the one I was talking about. So people who commit election interference by flooding the ballot have claimed victory by making Poilievre lose his seat and electing a Liberal. Is that weird? Election interference is great. No problems, everybody. Good job, right? Big thumbs up, I guess. Maxime Bernier is looking at what happened during the election as well. He says in this election, the PPC lost roughly 700,000 of its 840,000 votes from voters from 2021. That's 83%. I suspect the vast majority of voted for the Conservatives, having succumbed to the don't split the vote, must beat the Libs this time hysteria. And yet that strategy failed. We still have another Liberal government, and Poilievre couldn't even win his own seat. But the insane CPC trolls and the fake independent journalists and influencers paid by the CPC are accusing the PPC of helping to elect Carney. They refuse to recognize that Poilievre dropped the ball, that it's not the PPC's fault if Poilievre failed to beat the party that has destroyed Canada for a decade. It's not the PPC's fault if he offered a weak platform that was indistinguishable from Carney's. It's not the PPC's fault if he fell into the trap of letting Carney turn the election into a referendum on Trump, and then felt he had to campaign on the same side as Carney against Trump. Just really briefly to the side, I never saw this campaign as being about Trump. Like any time anybody tried to turn it to that conversation, I think it's an invalid conversation, and I don't cover that kind of crap. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I don't see it, and I'm sorry. I'm not sorry that I didn't tell you, but I feel like that's a distraction. That's not what this campaign should be about. That's not what's going on. They're lying about what Trump is doing. They're lying about the tariffs. They're lying about these things to make people think things that aren't true. It's interesting, but it's one of those things that I can't buy into the political narrative that they're trying to push. Everybody's trying to push. It's wild. Back to this. It would actually be a lot better for the conservative movement today if the PPC had maintained or even increased the support and shown everyone that there is a strong constituency for our principled conservative populist small government ideas. Short-term electoral gimmicks and empty slogans are not going to save Canada. We need to defend clear conservative ideas, make them acceptable and widely understood, and move the Overton window if we want people to vote for them. Despite this week's setback, that's what the PPC will continue to do, because the fake conservatives won't. So, yep, there you go. That's what's going on with Bernier. Tom Quiggin says Canada used to be the land of opportunity. Now many of the working citizens are looking for an opportunity to leave. Yep, I think that's true too. Here's the Doug Ford one, and the reason that I found it hilarious is because Jamil Giovanni, who's reelected in his riding, is using this. So Doug Ford's pulling off an Ontario PC shirt and exposing a federal liberal shirt, right? So that's pretty interesting. I think it's funny that our political discourse is at this level, right? Like, this is Giovanni. He didn't even tag Doug Ford in this, right? I think I would be upset that I wasn't tagged in this if this happened to me. But Ford is a fake conservative. He came to office promising to do away with a lot of things that he's either continued or ignored. He's enshrined a whole bunch of affirmative action, black brilliance. He allows Niagara Falls to be full of migrants paid for by tax dollars in hotels. There's all sorts of crazy things that are happening under Doug Ford, and how is that okay? How are people just okay with that? Like, we don't have to do this, and yet we continue to do this. And it seems like not only do we continue to do this, there isn't even a way to stop it, right? Despite, I don't think we have any responsibility to do this. Why are we doing this? Why are we flooding our country with foreigners? There's no reason. And yet, the political class continues to spend our money on this as if it's our responsibility, and as if the responsibility is something that has been agreed upon for years, and it's beyond discussing, and we're not going to discuss it. And if you have a problem with it, you're racist, right? Like, it's a wild, wild situation, and I don't think it jibes with how our laws are supposed to be executed, right? We are supposed to be able to speak freely about problems, speak freely about solutions, and try to find a solution that's beneficial for Canada. And yet our politicians don't do this, right? It's very interesting. Here's Jason Kenney. What's your game, Jason Kenney? He's back, and he wants the Conservative Party of Canada. So he's making the case to Albertans that we should give Mark Carney a chance, and the separatists are terrible. He hates the separatists. Jason Kenney says, Albertans have good reason to be deeply frustrated with Ottawa. Despite making a net contribution of $20 billion to fiscal federalism every year, we have faced a government in Ottawa fundamentally hostile to our largest industry, one central to Canada's economy. That's why. And he lists a whole bunch of his accomplishments. And then he gets to the end of that, and he says that's why Alberta and Saskatchewan are fighting against Mark Carney's proposed big increase in the industrial carbon tax, which would massively disadvantage our trade, exposed industries, and the proposed cap on oil sands production. In these and other fights, Alberta wins when we make alliances with other provinces and patiently make the case to our fellow Canadians. Just look at the recent polling showing that supermajorities support both oil and gas pipelines in every province. The vast majority of First Nations, blah, blah, blah. He says, let's seize the momentum. And he says, while I joined most Albertans in being disappointed with Monday's election results, so unlike you, I'm disappointed. He says, let's hold Mark Carney to his words about making Canada's global Canada a global energy superpower, deregulating to build pipelines, including big projects, including pipelines. And he says, but if we turn inward in a pointless debate on the charade of separation, we will reverse all that momentum. So he doesn't want separatists. He doesn't want anybody talking about Alberta leaving, anything like that. He is not interested in that. So he's an agent, and he's been activated to fight off separatism, especially in the wake of Danielle Smith, making it relatively easy to get the numbers to trigger a referendum like that. Here's Jason Kenney. Theo Fleury responded to, and I didn't read all of the tweet that Jason Kenney sent out here, but Theo Fleury says to him, they kicked you out of Alberta for a reason. Go back to sleep, Jason Kenney. You're irrelevant. Alberta is going down the road of independence. And Jason Kenney says, no one kicked me out of Alberta. Theo Fleury, proud Albertan here, my home since moving from Saskatchewan in 1991. You and your QAnon crew can't kick me out of my province, and you're not going to take our province out of our country. And I was like, what? Theo responds, he says, no, you got punted. How many people are no longer here from the vaccine lottery you had? What the F is a QAnon? Who's the conspiracy theorist? Get lost, you're a clown. And so it's interesting that Jason Kenney is having flame wars with people. Sheila Gunn-Reid is responding to Jason Kenney as well. She says, you underestimated the anger of Albertans once already. You're doing it again. So yeah, what's your game, Jason Kenney? He wants the Conservative Party of Canada. I think that's fundamentally what he wants. We've got our grab bag of governance, but first we've got to say goodbye to the stream. So I was just trying to get through all the election stuff and all the rest. So thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you tomorrow. And for everybody else, grab bag of governance. Senator Plett is done. He's retiring. And he says, earlier today, I made my final speech in the Senate chamber. Due to the prorogation and the election, the Senate hasn't sat since late December 24, and we will not be sitting in time before my retirement on May 14th. I'm thankful to have been given the opportunity to provide my closing remarks. As my time as a senator draws to a close, my hope and prayer is that I've been faithful in the eyes of God and my family and my colleagues to faithfully fulfill the duty I swore to uphold when I first entered this chamber. I'm forever grateful for the opportunity I've had to serve in this capacity and for the support, love, and friendship of all those I mentioned earlier, all of you in this room today, and many more who could not be with us, including Canadians who have been following me from home on social media. Thank you. May God bless you, and may God bless Canada. So there you go. Plett is a senator who stood up for people and tried to do his best to bring light to what was going on in the Senate and to hold people who were acting in bad faith to account. Very, very difficult battle these days because, I mean, what's going on is absolutely incredible. And it doesn't matter if Plett is on the side of the correct side. Anybody standing up on the correct side gets the shaft these days. And that's very, very strange. And so makes it even more difficult to do what he did. And so I wish him a good retirement. Hope that things go well for him. Gov.exe says Parliament does not reconvene until May 26th. The place has been closed since October 24. That's 9 months of taxation without representation while giving themselves a pay raise on April 1st. Canadians should be disgusted by this. I'm pretty disgusted by it. Vincent says free healthcare and free dental, except it's not free. We pay for it by control. We pay for it to be controlled by the government. It's really called communism. Mark Carney says we're expanding the Canadian dental care plan. Starting today, Canadians aged 55 to 64 can apply. In the coming weeks, applications will be open to Canadians aged 18 to 54. Because of this plan, millions of people can now afford to see a dentist. It's communism. It's not a great plan. Eventually, you run out of other people's money. Gov.exe says universal dental, universal pharma, universal healthcare, universal basic income, universal communism in Canada. This country is toast. Yeah, yep. It seems like a terrible plan that's only going to make things worse. And the people who are getting the kickbacks aren't going to want to stop the kickbacks. And so that's not great. Right? That's not so good. Here's Cheryl. She says, Liberals are prioritizing the boomers in the election and ignoring the cohorts needed to spur economic growth. The job market for new Canadian graduates is brutal and could get even worse. So that's from the Globe and Mail. But it is interesting that we are in a situation where our prospects are getting worse and worse. And the Liberals were almost re-elected with a majority, and nobody seems concerned about that, even though none of the problems they've caused are being addressed. In fact, are getting worse, right? And Mark Carney's going to fix it, he says. I don't think so. I don't think so because he's not even urgently acting on getting the government back and getting the directions changed, right? Everything's just fine. Everything is just going to keep running the way it's. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to canadapoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful